Do you have any other gossip for me?
Actually, it's funny.
You do?
Well, it's not gossip though. That's the thing. It has the potential for gossip, but it's not gossip. I don't know. It's kind of just the way you worded that made me think of it. But I'll go ahead and I'll give it to you because we're friends. Welcome to the Toronto Beer Podcast with me, Chris Schreier, and my co-host, who I have just not spent enough time with recently, Mandy Murphy.
Hey, Chris. How you doing tonight?
I am doing pretty fantastic. Summer has arrived in Toronto, and things couldn't be better. You?
I agree. I also agree that it's been too long since we've chatted.
Yeah, totally. There's been good reasons for a lot of that. As discussed in the last episode, at our normal recording day was I was in the come down from having been on major sedatives for a colonoscopy, and by the way, all went well.
That's good to hear.
In the interests of proving why these things are important, actually had some stuff removed that, if left alone, could have become, I was going to say a problem. No, cancer. Could have become cancer.
Wow.
So, yeah, always good to make sure, guys. Keep checking. But all's well with that. You've been very busy. You had a sick little puppy, I hear.
Yeah, Wrigley. It was scary. He got pretty sick, and we're not really sure why. Some kind of internal infection that turned into some pretty major eye issues, and the eye issues seemed to be not connected to the previous eye issues. So, I don't know, just concerning all in all. He was on a lot of medication, and we were in and out of the emergency clinic with him over the long weekend, and it was a little bit scary. And at the same time all of that happened, my computer crashed. I probably spend a good 12 to 14 hours a day on my computer. So it was probably just tired and wanted a long weekend as well. I can't blame it. So yeah, it left me sort of unable to do some recording, and that's why it's been so long.
I feel that. In the long interim, and speaking of everyone's favorite droopy dog, Wrigley has some big news.
Indeed,
do you want to break the big news?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I'm definitely not the one breaking it here, but for those listeners
it's old news.
Yeah,
now,
for those listeners who may not have heard, we're really proud and honored to announce that Wrigley Oat Pale Ale won the gold medal at the Canadian Brewing Awards in the North American Pale Ale category. So we were very pleased with that news.
It's worth mentioning as well, just to add a little bit big ups to that, the North American Pale Ale and North American IPA, those are tough categories. Like, not to say that people win other categories, it's a soft win or whatever, but man, that's a tightly contested category.
Yeah, we were really happy with the beer, but at the same time, delightfully surprised with the win. It certainly wasn't something we were expecting, and it will be our first Canadian Brewing Award. So we're pretty excited about that, and it's really nice that it happens to be with a beer that has some charitable good along with it. So the proceeds from, or a portion of the proceeds from every pint of the beer poured in the tap room, and every bottle that we sold to the bottle shop went toward or being donated to improvements at our local dog park. And so all in all, so far, we've raised just over $1,800 for some improvements there. So it's kind of a nice story all around.
It's fantastic. That is fantastic. I also saw an interesting picture. I don't know if you're going to be able to say too much about it, but there was a neat picture. I think I saw it on Facebook or maybe Instagram of Mark duct taping what looked like a giant garbage bag to the vent over the kettle. You want to talk about what was going on there?
Oh, that's an old one. That's from when we did our first kettle sour.
Oh, was it? It was just reshared, I guess, then.
Yeah, so I think Rob just got, Rob's one of our brewers, he just got caught up on posting a lot of his old pictures from the year on Facebook, and that happened to be one of them. It was their first adventure in kettle souring back when we did the hibiscus sour. So
right.
Not another sour on the way, but we do have another exciting beer coming out this week. Woohoo!
Any details? Can you hint?
Yeah, sure. We're launching a...
or just say.
Yeah. We could just say, yeah, we're launching it'll be our first lager. And it's a Helles style lager, so we are very, very excited to launch that beer this Friday.
That's fantastic. That'll be obviously tap room.
Yeah, tap room and bottle shop. ideally some craft beer spots around town, but the majority of it will be just at the brewery.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of beer, let's do the old, here we go. Get the noise gate ready. Ah, yeah. Didn't get any beer on my mic that time. Okay, usual routine. You want a little hint on what I'm drinking?
Yes, please.
It is a popular IPA from Ontario.
Oh boy, are you drinking Bone Shaker?
I am not drinking Bone Shaker. I am not.
Is it a Great Lakes IPA?
It is not a Great Lakes IPA.
Okay, just tell me what it is.
I'll give you a hint that might give it away.
Okay.
It's an IPA made by a very accomplished brewmaster who brews for 2 notable Ontario breweries.
Oh.
And both of the IPAs he make are very good. It's Ransack the Universe from Collective Arts.
Oh.
Whose brewmaster is the lovely, talented, and if I may say so, rather handsome Ryan Morrow. And he also brews and originally brewed for Nickelbrook. And so Nickelbrook Headstock IPA and Collective Arts Ransack the Universe, different IPAs to be sure. I could probably even tell them apart blind side by side, but both fantastic IPAs. And I've just gotten into, I hadn't had the Ransack the Universe aside from maybe once at at a beer fest or something. And then I met with Erica, who reps for them, and she passed me a can or two of it. And I've subsequently bought numerous cans of it because it's a buy-in IPA for me. That says something if I go out of my way to purchase it. And I can get the cans at Loblaws now, so that helps. But
that's awesome.
It's totally, I haven't confirmed this with Ryan, but I would be surprised if there were any hops added to it any time before the last 5 minutes of the boil. It just drinks like a big, juicy, hop-laden monster. It's great.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't tried that one, but it's that should have been an obvious clue for me about the brewing for two Ontario breweries making delicious IPAs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Nickelbrook cleaned up pretty good in hoppy beer categories at the 2016 Canadian Brewing Awards. I don't want to say amazed, because amazed isn't the right word here. I reached for it, but I put it back. But pleased and gratified, let's say, to see how well Ontario did in general, including Canadian Brewery of the Year, and this one meant a lot to me, Side Launch. Yeah, that was awesome, dude. So exciting.
Yeah, and
well deserved.
Yeah, and not, because this is the thing, I don't want to take anything away from previous winners, but you look at Great Lakes, like 2 times in a row won it, and they deserve it. They make fantastic progressive beers. But Side Launch does some of that, but why they won it is their ability to consistently produce fantastic, like world-class, what would be considered old styles or like traditional styles, like their Weiss beer, which of course is the old Denison's Weiss beer, and their Dunkel is fantastic, and their Helles Lager that they're doing is like mind-bendingly good. Like, and these are beers that aren't gonna get the geeks all in a tizzy. It's just that people who know beer drink them and go, that's like as good as you're gonna get doing that beer. And they win because of that. And it comes down to Michael Hancock, their brewer, is just bolts when it comes to making beers. So congratulations to Side Launch. That is well deserved.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's very, very excited, very well deserved.
So I'm trying to think if we have anything else to catch up on before we dive in. I've been homebrewing a lot, as you know. Homebrewing a lot, Mandy.
I've been seeing that. What do you have going on right now?
Well, I got 4 fermenters bubbling away in my room right now.
Whoa, that sounds like a lot. You don't normally have that many on the go at once, right?
I don't, and I actually have a 5th in the basement on a Brett blend, just funking up. So good times with that. I've got a sort of a Belgian, I think, what did I call it? A French farmhouse IPA. So it's not actually a Belgian IPA. Is that what I called it? I'm just looking at my notes here. It is, no, because, yeah, it's exactly what I called it, French Farmhouse IPA. Remember when I was talking about making a beer called Hipster Bitch Slap? Mm-hmm. Hipster Bitch Slap, fermenting away, Yeast 3711, Nelson and Eldorado hops, and then I just dry hopped it with some Amarillo, some more Nelson, and some Hallertau Blanc just to really hipster it up. But it is tasting fantastic. So I dry hopped that today. I'll crash it tomorrow, bottle it on Thursday, and then a week or two it'll be ready to rock, which is pretty exciting. I've got my big brew beer from the GTA Brews homebrew group, but something has gone awry and it's not going to work the way I wanted it to. It's just a question now if it's redeemable or if I just chuck it out, but that's part of homebrewing. And then I have twin fermenters of a Saison I did, but with Escarpment Labs, their New World Saison blend, which is a blend of Sack and Brett strains. So, yeah, it's plugging away. It's going, actually, funny enough, a bit slower than I was expecting it to, but it's chugging along, and it's going to taste fantastic too. That one I made all with Pecco hops. You ever heard of Pecco hops?
I have not, no.
I only just found them when I was snoozing around on Brew North's website, but it's a dwarf. It's from American Dwarf Hop Growers Association. I don't know what the difference is between a regular hop and a dwarf hop, but apparently that's what they do. But yeah, it's just a cool kind of spicy, winey hop that I went for. So it's interesting to see. But yeah, lots of homebrewing going on. Lots of
Where do you
homebrewing.
get this might sound silly, but where do you get the escarpment yeast? Can you buy directly from them in like homebrew quantity?
No, but they do releases to Brew North and Toronto Brewing at least, and I think Shortfinger out in Guelph gets their stuff too, Bobo's place. So, but it's I was gonna say it's really inconsistent. That's not the word I meant. It's not that it the yeast is inconsistent, but their homebrew sized batches, their homebrew pitches just aren't around all that often. So here, hang on a sec, talk, because there's a dog barking and my window's open.
Yeah. Thought that was on my end. Usually it's the dog barking here.
No, that's me, and the window's open because it's a bazillion degrees up here. But anyway, I'll just sweat it out. It's all right.
You just gotta, melt. That's what I'm doing. Melting.
Yeah, tough it out for the show. Funny, we were talking about Side Launch. They make a great Helles. We've actually been selling the Helles from Muddy York recently at Castro's, and it's a real treat, and you guys are doing a Helles too. And actually, I know for a fact, I'm going to slightly backpedal here, but that there is another major brewery also working on a Helles. It's looking to me like the beer to be chasing this summer is going to be that top quality Helles. But if you follow what's going on in the States, and if you believe what sort of the loud chatter or the general chatter is, what are we going to see more of this summer, kids? Hard root beers. You ever had a hard root beer, Mandy?
I have not. I've just been hearing a lot about them. They sound pretty interesting, pretty delicious, but I haven't actually set my eyes on any yet. What about you?
Well, I'd heard about them obviously because the big one that kind of broke last year in the States was called Not Your Father's Root Beer. And I can't remember who makes it, but it's someone in the States. And then subsequently another brewery kind of followed up with a much more kind of boozy, alcoholic-y one, as opposed to the Not Your Father's, which was apparently, and I've subsequently discovered, a bit more of a sweet one. And then multiple people got in on it. And it was one of those things, kind of a matter of time, looking at the Ontario market, thinking, well, somebody's probably going to dive on this. And the first one out of the gate that I've seen is from Mill Street, which not entirely surprising. They're obviously trying to push the envelope a bit now that they're under new ownership and have a lot of headspace, I guess. But it's going to be a thing. I think you're going to see more people going for it. When I was down in Florida in February, I laid hands on some of the Not Your Father stuff. It really, to me, just tasted like really sweet root beer. I didn't really get too much beer out of it, but I'm aware that I probably would have gotten drunk if I'd had 4 or 5 of them, and then had a fantastically awful hangover. But yeah, I thought that's interesting. I could see that working, but I kind of want to see people do it where it's a bit more of a style that gets root beered rather than trying to make a root beer with alcohol. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm surprised at your comment on the sweet piece, though, Chris, because everything I've been reading about these things is that they're only lightly sweet.
The one that I had, the Not Your Father's. Now, remember, I don't drink a lot of soda. I predominantly drink my calories in beer. But to me, it was like sweeter than a Coke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it was sweet. So I wasn't too... Oh, and I can verify at one point I spilled a little bit on the table, and we were outside, and about 10 minutes later, I thought, I've got a napkin now, I'm just going to wipe it up. And it had dried, and it was like sticky.
Like syrup, okay.
Yeah, so it was sweet. I haven't had the Mill Street one. I know the Mill Street one, the way that they're attacking it is, let me see if I get this right. They made a batch of their vanilla porter, then they ran it through their still to make like a beer schnapps out of it. Then they took that and blended it into either a base beer or maybe just into like water, like blended it back down to beer strength, but added the botanicals and the sugar to make it root beery, which is a pretty involved process because it involves making a beer, distilling it, and then making a beer out of the distillate. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they've got the technology, so why not? But like I said, I haven't had that one yet. It launched last week or 2 weeks ago down in the distillery district, so I'll probably lay hands on it at some point and give it a whirl, but have not had it yet. I had an interesting conversation today with man of the brewing world and good friend of mine, Ian at Amsterdam, and jokingly, me and Jordan St. John actually were there coincidentally at the same time, and Jordan was kind of hassling him a bit and like, so when's your root beer coming out? And he said that actually one of the big concerns for him and why they probably would never even try one is the botanicals have a tendency to really imprint their flavors on anything they touch, like even stainless. And he said he's heard stories from breweries in the States that like the kettle after the boil, even after a caustic scrub, still like notably smelled of root beer. And so he's like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, what do you do once it smells like root beer? Like, what if you can't get it out? And of course, they've got a beautiful new Crown system that they don't want to befoul with sarsaparilla and whatever else you put in root beer. But so it's an interesting addition to the problem. I know from experience we had craft root beer from Nickelbrook on tap at Castro's for a while, and it took about 3 months to clear the flavor out of that line. You'd have to run about a pint through at the start of each shift to get rid of the root beer taste. It just kept soaking back into the beer, which is disturbing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's alarming.
Yeah, it's virulent stuff. The botanicals apparently, so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, you guys obviously no intention to do a take me out to the ballpark root beer or anything.
No, definitely not. Although we see so many families in through the tap room, it would be nice to have our own soda on tap, right? But
yeah, totally.
Not something we're looking to do right now. But I find the trend really interesting, and the reason I've been sort of watching it is because my background is in the ready to drink world. Like, prior to brewery stuff, the quote is that I worked for a wine company, but I managed their everything that's not wine portfolio, which was primarily RTDs. And RTDs have been a struggling, or ready to drink coolers have been a really struggling segment for liquor retailers over the past, I'm going to say probably decade. I think it's been pretty flat, if not shrinking a little bit. And consumers are generally, I don't know, I don't want to say moving away from it entirely, but it hasn't experienced the type of growth that you see in cider or craft beer by any means. And so I think this is interesting, especially with the malt-based hard root beers. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if it has that element of craft beer and craft cider that's attractive to, I guess, the demographic that's buying the most amount of booze. But that if it would appeal to RTD drinkers in the same way, I don't know. It's interesting to watch. And if it could help maybe boost the category, I don't know.
But I even, pardon me, I even wonder if because it is malt based, if they would count it as an RTD, or if they would list it as a beer. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. In Mill Street's case, it would be an RTD because it's just a distilled thing, right? So
good point. Yeah, it would be.
But I don't know that they're all being made that way.
I think that's far and away the exception. I think most of them are sort of brewed and then possibly tweaked post fermentation. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point. I hadn't even really considered it from that angle. Yeah, like I say, I would like to see sort of like a stout that's got kind of botanical notes added to it that make it root beery as opposed to root beer that's a bit malty, and that would put it much more firmly into the beer side of the camps, right?
Yeah, to me, something like that sounds delicious, where it's maybe more stout or more porter than soda, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And just has those hints of root beer. But I know breweries have done that as well and have taken that angle. But that sounds to me like the more delicious approach, or something that could be a little more up our alley.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, anytime you add flavoring to a beer, the question kind of becomes, are you making a flavored beverage that happens to use beer as the base? Or are you making a beer and you're trying to add layers of complexity through additional flavors, right? And it's sort of the difference between like a Bud Light Lime or Rita and, well, even like your hibiscus sour, which had hibiscus added to it. That's not normally put into beer, right? That's an extra flavor, where your approach is obviously work with what you've got and try and, add to it, not bulk up the taste, but you know what I mean? Round it out. Whereas the Lime Marita format is much more put anything you can in to try and hide the fact that there isn't much going on with this beer. So yeah, it's
right. And I'm not sure really where I stand on the addition of sugar. Like, at what point are you, if it is meant to be a beer, at what point are you preserving the integrity of the beer if you're loading it up with sugar? I don't know.
And you're talking like loading it up with sugar post fermentation.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming that's what has to be done to these root beers, but I don't know enough about how they're actually made.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, nothing about it from a brewing point of view, because there are ways that you can create unfermentable sugar, like mash hot, and use lactose. Like, lactose is unfermentable by sack strains, so you could almost do like a milk stout that you then maybe did like a vanilla root beer with, and then it would taste a little bit like a root beer float.
Yeah, that sounds very yummy, but is that how this is being done?
No, but it could be.
Right, yeah.
And then that would be, you're not adding sugar after the fact there, you're just making a ridiculously front-loaded beer.
Sure.
Any brewers out there listening, you want to do what I just suggested, you go right ahead. I want a hot mashed, lactose-added stout with vanilla and root beer botanicals, and it will be a root beer float stout, and I think it will be a home run.
I don't know. I'm not sure. At what point does it become like a malt-based RTD because it's so sweet, and at what point is it a beer? I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting question. I think it would be fair to say that there's probably no binary switch to flip there. And there would be disagreement both ways. Because, I mean, there are stouts that are 100% beers that are 100% syrupy sweet, right?
Sure. Yeah, fair. No, there totally are. Yep.
So, and I mean, to some people, they'd be like, no, that's not really like a beer. It's too sweet. But functionally, it fits the bill every other way. And it's just the way that they happen to ferment it, or whatever their process was led to it being, syrupy sweet. So it's interesting. Hey, to jump off for a second, I realized I said what I was drinking. Are you drinking anything interesting right now?
I am, actually. It's a beer you had already mentioned earlier in the show. I'm drinking a Wrigley Oat Pale Ale. A
gold medal CBA winning Wrigley Oat Pale Ale.
Yes, an award-winning beer from a local brewery. We've been
that's
joking around at the brewery, calling each other award-winning this and that people.
Yeah, well, that's the same, like, who was it? I think it was Cody. Was like, do I have to refer to you as an award-winning homebrewer now? And I was like, no, I think as a homebrewer, you need to win a couple of contests. And then the best part is I actually got the judging notes from the contest. Now, remember, kids, if you're following along, I won the top, like the number one place in the farmhouse category at a GTA Brews homebrew contest. And I said at the time, very, very happy, very, very honored to win. It was a pretty small contest. I was one of 4 people who entered that category.
But how many farmhouse ales did you enter into the category?
Just the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was only 4 beers. I don't even know. I think it was from 4 different people. But the category was actually only judged by two BGCP judges, and one of them really liked the beer, and one of them actually kind of panned it, but I'm assuming they probably didn't like any of them, and that kind of saved me. So I just assumed that the one didn't know what they were talking about, and the one that liked it was bang on.
It's the way to do it. I would have done the same.
Award-winning home brewer Chris Schreier. Jumping sort of back to a little bit related to what we were just talking about, and I this might go absolutely nowhere. I'm not sure, but have you been reading about the Georgian Bay Gin Smash, the RTD in a can?
Again, I cannot stop hearing about this thing.
It's everywhere, eh?
Not something
it's sold
I've
out
tried.
everywhere.
Yeah, not something I've tried. Not something I've sought out, but it's everywhere. Have you had it?
I haven't. I thought of it when you brought up RTD. I was like, oh, like I remember Christine Sismondo, who writes for a bunch of different things, including The Star, had written something about it, and I just pulled up the article. And I actually haven't read it yet, and I'm not going to read it out loud right now. But she gave it very, very high praise. And I got to be honest with you, at $2.95 per can at the LCBO, that is not a bad price for a gin-based RTD.
No, and they appear, speaking of award-winning, they appear to be the Georgia Bay Spirit Company appears to be an award-winning distillery.
Yeah.
So not just an invented brand trying to peddle some low-quality neutral grain spirits.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually a distiller who cares about making good distillates. It's unheard of in the category.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them entering the RTD category with a competitively priced tall can. Very fascinating to see that story unfold.
Yeah.
Really like to give it a shot.
Yeah, me too. Although, like I say, word on the street is it's kind of sold out everywhere. So have to see if they can keep up the production on it. And it makes me wonder if they're using session to can.
Yeah, I'm wondering the same. I hadn't thought to ask. We were doing an emergency canning run on Sunday, so I was spending a good amount of time on the line drying cans as they came off.
The other thing actually that makes me think of too, and when Ian was talking about botanicals, he'd mentioned that apparently if you run a distillery and you do gin and anything else, you normally have one still for the gin and one still for the anything else, because the gin has a tendency to really impact flavors, even in metal, that you can caustic scrub. And so I wonder if it's a problem on the canning line, if like they have to be really mindful of cleaning the filler heads and stuff, because otherwise it's ginny, whatever comes out of it next.
Oh yeah, I'm certain there would need to be some extra cleaning that took place. I know the same is true between cider and beer runs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, and similarly, there's an old joke, and it's mostly true, which is the best thing a brewery can do is get their framboise on tap in your bar, because if it's on for more than about a week, the line is just screwed. Like it tastes like raspberries until Kingdom Come.
It's yours forever.
Yeah, that's right. If you can just get those hooks in early enough, but yeah, no, that's interesting. So yeah, this is another thing I'm going to keep my eye out for, is this Georgian Bay Gin Smash. And then I'm curious too, Erica's not a huge gin drinker, but she does like it sometimes. I wonder if she'd be into it, because she's a non-beer person, so she drinks a lot of cider, but that could be a cool cottage alternative as well.
Yeah, for sure.
What else have we got? This is flying by, Mandy. We're only at 30 minutes, and we might even edit something out, so this is going great. You got anything you want to ask about or cover?
Not entirely, no. I wasn't sure where you were heading with the root beer talk tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was going to run longer, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
It ran out of steam. Maybe like the trend. Hi-ho!
Oh, zinger. You know what? No, my head, as usual, has been kind of head down, focusing on all of the crazy and wild adventures that come along with running a brewery at this time of year. Just preparing for May 24 was kind of wild for us, and getting through that weekend. We have a lot of new beers coming up, and trying to keep variety available through the summer can be a challenge at points. So we're trying to make sure that we stay consistent with that, and looking forward to future expansion plans and trying to get our ducks in a row for when that will take place and what it'll look like. Managing distribution at this time of year, quite honestly, is is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to make sure everything runs smoothly and keeping our customers happy and make sure the beer tastes great everywhere that you can find it and pick it up. And I don't know, it keeps me pretty bogged down.
Do you guys bring in an extra, like a summer brewery person, like an intern or a cellarman or something to help with like transferring and junk like that?
You know what, we haven't been at the point yet where we really find that our business is terribly seasonal. It's almost been like very steady growth, but the growth accelerates as the summer hits.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we've had to bring in some extra help. We do have a brewing assistant in addition to the brewing team of Austin, Rob, and Mike. We do have one brewing assistant, and we just find that he ends up getting more shifts than he normally would because it's a part-time role. A lot of washing kegs, a lot of making boxes and washing bottles and preparing for packaging days. There's a lot of work that goes into just making sure you have everything ready and on the floor and everything set to go for a packaging day, whether it be clean kegs that have gone through 1 or 2 cleaning cycles, bottles ready to go, boxes made up. So there's a lot of work involved in that, and that's what he really spends a lot of time focusing on.
Yeah.
We really couldn't get through packaging days without him. His name's Kevin. He's a good friend of ours.
I was about to say, is that Kevin?
Yeah. You know Kevin?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I know Kevin. We've had some times at Oktoberfest, me and Kevin.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So yeah, Kevin's getting a lot of time. And then we do add some help in the event and festival department.
Right, of course.
I think gone are the days where Mark and I are able to work the entire like load in to close and load out of a festival with just the odd set of hands helping out here and there, as we used to do back in the good old days.
Yeah.
We're still very much there and present, but just with everything else that's going on back at the brewery and elsewhere, we really do need a lot of extra help. So we've got that all lined up for the summer, got our events and festivals all lined up for the summer, something that we'll be doing this year that we hadn't done previously, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun as we're participating in the Leslieville Flea Market.
Oh, amazing. We'll see you there.
Yeah, so we'll be pouring there.
They're finally doing a little licensed area, eh?
They are, yeah. So I'm not sure if they've announced it officially yet or not, but we're thrilled to be working with them. There's so much red tape to jump through, hoops to jump through and red tape to get past to serve beer outdoors to a crowd of that size in an area that wouldn't otherwise be licensed.
So you don't have to add like pop-up fencing and stuff?
Well, it is a fenced in.
It is, but
in park.
It's only partially fenced in. But anyway,
no, it's entirely fenced in. So there's a new fence that's just been built.
Oh, okay, that might change it.
There are 2 small openings, so as long as we have someone manning those openings, we're good to go. Yeah, and so the fence, I guess, meets the AGCO requirements, and we've notified.
So I can stand by the wading pool and watch Ben and Grace splash and sip on a delicious.
Oh, you're thinking of the Leslieville Farmers Market.
Oh, what did you say?
The Leslieville Flea.
Oh, Flea, yeah, and they do that in.
It's in the Ashbridges, estate.
Yes,
park.
yes. Okay, You're right. Yep. Okay, sorry. Not as exciting for me personally, but that's very exciting news.
And I guess I'll spill the beans a little early, but the other one is kind of in the works, the one you're thinking. So hopefully we can pull that off and make that one happen. But we're working hard on the Leslieville Flea is certainly happening.
Wicked.
And the Leslieville Farmers Market is something we're getting close on. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, like we go to that normally as soon as school ends. Our church flips to doing, it normally does a spoken Eucharist at 8:30 in the morning and then a sung one at 10:30, which is sort of the main service. And that's the one we go to. But in the summer, they flip it so it's just one and it's at 9:30 in the morning. But it means we're out by like a little after 11. And so we would often go over to the Leslieville Farmers Market, get some fish tacos from Hooked, have those for lunch, and then pick up some produce. The kids would play in the wading pool, and then we would head home. And every time, I'm just like, why aren't we licensing these? Like, it wouldn't be that difficult. It really wouldn't. Of course it is. But always thinking that. So that's exciting news that's a possibility. But
yeah, and it looks like they'll be ideally working with various partners. So stay tuned for news on that. But we'll if it all works out, we will ideally have a pretty strong share of market dates as the brewery that'll be there. So pretty excited about it. Hopefully it all comes together.
Yeah, that's
And hopefully I
amazing.
haven't spilled the beans too early on their news.
Well, we can always edit that out. Don't worry. Are you guys doing like craft beer cruise or anything coming up?
Not the cruise. We're doing sort of our own regular roster. So we do the beach barbecue and brews.
And when is that? That's really
we'll be
soon.
doing that.
Oh, it's Father's Day weekend.
It's always
of course.
Father's Day weekend, yeah.
So, it's
So
not that soon.
it takes place then.
Yeah.
Obviously, just ahead of that is OCB week. I think the beach barbecue and brews now lands at the end of OCB week.
That's right, yeah.
Whereas back in the day, it was at the beginning. It was always the kickoff. And so this year for OCB week, we have the Bison's trip lined up, which we'll kick it off with. And then all week long, it'll just be events that we're doing at the brewery. So hosting free tours every night of the week. Having a bit of a celebration going on at the brewery and getting people out to our space.
Cool.
Yeah, we don't offer tours during the week, so it'll be fun to do that. And then closing it out with the Father's Day at the Beach Barbecue and Brews. So really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. I'm going to be cruising and sipping beer this Saturday evening on the craft beer cruise. Don't even have to give it that much love because it's already sold out. So
have you attended the event before, Chris?
Yeah, I've gone a couple of times.
Okay, good
and
stuff.
it has so much potential to be such a total disaster. And I've never heard any really bad disaster stories from any of the sailings of it. And certainly have never experienced one while I'm on it. But you just think about this, right? Boat full of people drinking a lot of beer, limited bathroom space. It just seems like it could go completely wrong, and it hasn't. So that's good. I know they do them every 2 a year. So there's another one coming up in September. If you're hearing this and you really want to go, mark your calendar for September. But yeah, I do. I love that event. That's a good one. And
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And kudos to Sean at Side Lounge who puts that thing together.
Yeah, every time. And it's like I say, I don't know if it's top-down great organization or if it's just fortunate timing or a bit of both, but it's always been a pleasure. There's never been trouble. It's great. Got, of course, Session coming up. I was actually at the launch of the West Coast Session Lager. It's an India Pale Lager that they did. I was at that today. Actually, that's not entirely true. I missed the launch. I got there when everyone was leaving, but they still gave me some beer anyway. And it's tasting nice. It's a cool beer. Very, very sessionable, as you would expect with the way they try and tap into the name. But so Session is coming up and all the OCB Week stuff that's going to be coming down. I think.
Am I going to see you at the OCB Week launch event on the 10th at Steam Whistle?
Definitely, maybe.
Definitely, maybe. It's a good one. You should be there.
I know. I try. It's a Friday normally, right?
Yep.
I think what normally happens is I forget, and then that I forget, and so I'm just not there. But I will try. I know Erica's brother and his family are coming in on the 6th, so hopefully I'm not tied up doing stuff with them. But yeah, should be good. Should be good
if listeners
times.
haven't heard about it, it's at Steam Whistle. It takes place Friday the 10th. I think it starts around 3, 4, or 5 o'clock-ish.
Yeah, and it's an open invite, right?
It is, yeah. There is a ticketed price. It's $30, but it gets you unlimited beer samples, and there are reps and brewers and owners and all kinds of people from all breweries that are there. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So that's cool too. Anything else?
No, you know what? That's it. I got to get this lager out the door and launched on Friday.
Got things to do. I got to go down to games night. We're recording this on a Tuesday night, and I do games night every Tuesday, except the ones that I don't, at Castro's Lounge. So I gotta get down there too. But let's leave it. But hang on. What does that mean for our calendar? Does that mean that the next episode is going to be the OCB Week extravaganza?
I guess, yeah, it could be. Yeah, why not?
I think it would either, well, we could, yeah, maybe we'll aim to try and do one at some point next week, OCB Week extravaganza. I don't know, we'll see. Or it might be during OCB Week. We'll see. It'll be one of the two. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong calendar. Nope, I was looking right. Okay, we're fine. So yeah, we'll see what we see, but it might be the OCB Week extravaganza, kids. So if you're looking for an extravaganza in your podcasts, this could be the one. Thanks for listening. Mandy, you have a great night.
Thanks, same to you.